everyone, welcome to our next blog post, which is all about sugar. Today we'll be reviewing what sugar is and also the different types of sugar. So I wanted to start off, I don't think we can really review sugar until we understand the different types of sugar and where they can be found. So first up with the different types of sugar, no matter what you're choosing, whether it be sugar or syrup, they all get broken down into either glucose or fructose or both. Now, so you've got sucrose, which is 50% glucose and 50% fructose. You've got maltose, which is pretty much 100% glucose. And you've got free glucose and free fructose. So no matter what type of sugar or syrup you're using, it gets broken down into the same components, whether you're choosing the expensive brand or just the simple white sugar. And that's a really important thing to remember. Now, glucose, knowing how it works in the body, basically it enters the stomach after you eat it, and then from there enters the small intestine. From the small intestine, it can then enter the bloodstream, where you've got these glucose molecules running around, and then from the bloodstream, it can enter the cells. And this is where insulin comes and unlocks the door to allow the glucose to enter the cells. Now, fructose is a little bit different, and this can actually be really handy, but it can also be a little bit detrimental too. So fructose intake is a little bit controversial for the main reason of how it's metabolized. So when we're consuming fructose, it obviously goes to the stomach as well, same as glucose, enters the small intestine, but from there it differs. It actually gets directed to the liver for processing and metabolism before it actually gets utilized by the body. Now, this difference here in how it's absorbed is actually really handy when it comes to something like endurance exercise, because it means that we can actually absorb more carbohydrates per hour because we're using different pathways for absorption. And that's called multiple transportable carbohydrates, and something that we'll be talking about in future posts. Now, also what happens is, because it takes so long to process here with fructose, things that are high in fructose tend to be lower glycemic index or lower GI. But also there's a bit of a detriment. Because it's being directed to the liver, there's now thoughts that it actually can lead to issues with the liver, such as fatty liver, and also increases in fat storage. So it is something to not overconsume, but the hype around not consuming any fructose is a little bit crazy. And you know, absolutely consume fructose when it's in its natural form, particularly when you're talking about fruits and veggies and things like that. That's completely okay to eat fructose. If you're eating a lot of added sugars in your diet and fructose is coming in as an added sugar quite frequently, you know, lots of fruit juices, lots of soft drinks, lots of added sugars in foods that you eat, then that's where it's a concern, and it's probably something to bring back a little bit. Now, glucose and fructose and knowing how they absorb then can lead into our review, because it makes it really obvious that sometimes there isn't actually that much difference between the sugars, but the big difference is definitely in the cost. So for our review, you will see on our charts that, particularly for sugars, there is really not much difference. Most of them, actually, sorry, all of them are over 90% sugar containing foods, and there really isn't much difference. There is a little bit of difference between glucose and fructose in them, but most of them are made up of sucrose. Now with syrups, you'll actually see that there's a differing amount of sugars in each one. And that's a little bit cool. That can, you know, help guide your decision if you want it to. But the big thing to remember is that the sugars and the syrups that tout, you know, really high minerals and vitamin content are actually not adding that much nutrition to your intake, because you'd have to eat a lot of those sugars to make any difference to your nutrition profile of how much you have. So, you know, if you were to eat 25 teaspoons of coconut sugar, you would only actually get a quarter of your potassium needs per day anyway. So I guess the big thing with sugars and syrups, as you can see, is that there isn't that much difference. Sugar is sugar, and really you should be making a decision based on things like taste and preference and what works in what recipes. And a big thing you can probably use for decision making is actually the price. I now have all of these sugars and syrups in my cupboard after doing this review in particular, so we'll definitely be utilising them in different cakes and bickies and slices and whatnot, but just use it in moderation. Enjoy what you're using it for, and don't think that just because you're using something that might be touted as a superfood or a better sugar option, that it is actually better for you, because at the end of the day, I'm sorry, sugar is really just sugar.